Hi, I'm artist Esther L. Jones, and I'm here today to review Girault Pastels, Neutrals and Friends by Richard Mc Kinley. Hello, Wanderers. Those of you who are wondering what's going on and wondering about things and feeling creative and artistic, welcome to my channel. This is a review of Girault Pastels. I recently was able to purchase some and try them out, and I'm excited to share with you what I have discovered about Girault Pastels. I do need to say that Girault is not sponsoring this video at all. They have not paid me to do this, and they don't even know I'm doing it. I'm just doing it for you guys because I've noticed that my review videos are very helpful. So if there's something regarding pastel art that you would like for me to review, please let me know. I'd be glad to try it out for you and let you know how it can help you. So, Girault Pastels, and I would like to share with you the set that I bought is called the Neutrals and Friends by Richard Mc Kinley. So, Neutrals and Friends by Richard Mc Kinley. And the set, although I've used it, you'll get to see it brand new as we move on because I filmed it earlier, but it looks about like this as far as colors go. And I'm really excited to share with you what I discovered. So here in a minute, you're going to see me go ahead and paint this piece, and I will do a voiceover so that you understand what's actually going on. And you will find out more about it then, and I'll explain what paper I'm using and all those things. So I do want to say that the packaging of the Girault was really great. It was in this box and then in this sleeve, all right, and there was a piece of foam on top. Furthermore, I had ordered it from Dakota Pastels and had ordered it the same time I ordered some large sheets of paper. They taped the box to the middle of the paper. They surrounded the box with little tiny boxes of taped on cardboard to keep it absolutely still. And then they wrapped the box in bubble wrap. I don't see how anything could have gotten broken unless they deliberately did something at the post office to mess it up. And they weren't. They arrived pristine and beautiful. So if you order and you order from Dakota Pastels, you can be sure that they are going to treat it correctly. I do encourage you to order from Dakota when you can, as they are a small operation, but very personal. And so you can actually call them and discuss different options for what you're wanting, the application that you want. They will send you samples of paper. They will send you samples of pastel. So also, just a disclaimer, Dakota Pastels is not sponsoring this either. I just had, this is actually my first experience with them, and it was wonderful. And I've heard from others that they are really great. Okay, so allons-y. Let's get started with the painting, and then I'll have a few comments afterwards. Okay, as I was editing this video, I discovered that I made some poor decisions as far as where to put the camera. So no, there are lots of reasons why that happened, but in the end I decided to leave it that way. What you'll notice is that you can't actually see me putting the marks on the paper because my hand is in the way. And I apologize for that, but this is my initial reaction, and I didn't want to lose the freshness of that, so I apologize. And I will put a clip at the end to show you how they actually go on so that you can actually view that happening. So, disclaimer. All right, so I begin with my underpainting, and I did speed this part of the film up because this is not the point of the video. So I'm using my usual, my favorite Derwent ink blocks for the underpainting. I'm choosing a red because a bunch of the stuff that we're going to be doing is green, and this is going to help it to pop. These ink sticks are just really cool. I just like putting them on. They go on a lot like pastels, and then I just use alcohol, which you'll see in a minute, to activate it, and then it looks a lot like watercolor, but it's permanent on there, and I'm able to have a really nice wet underpainting. You can see that this piece of view art was a scrap, and so it's been bent. It has that little curve at the top. This is UArt 400, which is or has up to now been my favorite type of surface to paint on, and just activating it with the alcohol. If you use the 91%, it will dry even faster. You'll see on here that I don't even stop. I just go ahead and do that, pick out my pastels and begin to paint. I've darkened the path in there. As Karen Margulis says, I'm giving you a path for the eye. It's not necessarily going to look like a walking path, but it will give the eye a path into the painting. So it's completely finished, and I'm just making some touch-ups. Whatever you do to the underpainting, you can really help yourself with your painting afterwards. A couple of little places that I missed. I lightened that area on the right in the middle ground because that's going to be my focal point. All right, I'm starting to pick out my pastels for the painting, and I'm going for the darks first. And yes, you just noticed that I took those brand new pastels and I broke them. They are now the correct size for using. And right here is where you begin to see my poor choice of camera placement, because you can't see what I'm doing because my hand is in the way. So I apologize for that, and I hope that it's not too annoying for you. As I said in my disclaimer, I decided to go ahead and keep this because it was my very first impressions of the of using the Girault Pastels. So I am restricting myself to these Girault Pastels for the purpose of being able to evaluate them properly. You'll notice later on I do add one pastel that is not part of the Girault set. And that is my super favorite, the Terry Ludwig eggplant, just so I can get a super dark tree trunk in there. All right, so now what I've done is I've keyed this painting. I've put in the darkest darks and I've put in the lightest lights. And that is going to help me stay in a both a harmonizing sort of palette, but also it's going to give me a good grip on the concept of my values in my painting. I want that area that is now light to recede into the distance, but also be the place where your eye goes. All right, and I'm making dirt for my flowers to grow. This field was just beautiful. It had just scads of yellow flowers and some other colors of flowers too, and it just was a beautiful scene, and I wanted to bring it to life. At this point, I am already loving these pastels. They are soft. They don't feel as soft as like the Terry Ludwigs or like the Great Americans. And I'm choosing 3 or 4 different light colors for the sky. It was a moody sky, and so I'm trying to keep that feel because the yellow popped so beautifully with the moody sky. So hopefully I will get that effect. Remember that your skies will have a warmer color closer to the horizon and will go cooler as you look further up towards the zenith. These pastels do layer beautifully. I really, really enjoy how they layer. The layers are very, you can see the layers, and the colors are able to be seen through the color that you put on top. Really enjoying these pastels. Will they replace my precious Terry Ludwigs or my Senneliers or any of my others? Nope. What they'll do is they'll go into my box and they will gather, and I'll gather experience with them, and they will become, they'll have their own job. I will pick them up when I know that they will do the best job in that spot. And sometimes it really doesn't matter if it's the right color, if it's the right value. I don't care the hardness. I don't care how it lays down. So that's how I handle having all the different types of pastel. Notice I did not want the texture in the sky to detract from the flowers. So I am flicking a little bit of the sky in so that it doesn't draw attention away from my focal point. Notice that I layered it, all right, and I'm going to lighten that area that I just pointed to, and also I'm looking for a color that will work in the distance for the trees. So I'm looking for a cooler color, I'm looking for a duller color, and a fairly light color to build those trees. And hopefully you'll get to see that here in a minute once my hand gets out of the way. And I really found the colors in this Neutrals and Friends set to be very useful, with the exception of not having a true
some true darks in there. I was very pleased with the quality and arrangement of the colors. The colors are neutralized, so they're a little bit duller than your super brights that you get whenever you pick up your very first pastel set and you're super excited and you get it at the store and it has all these luscious bright colors, and then you get home and you wonder how come your painting that you try for the very first time looks like a kindergartner did it. Well, it's because you got all the crayon colors. And none of the crayon colors are muted, but these are muted, so they're more like real life colors. That doesn't mean that they're not luscious or beautiful. They're just more like natural colors in nature. So if you're doing a landscape or you're doing a flower, you're going to find these very, very useful. You may want to supplement with some brighter colors, some more pure hues in order to make things pop. But just for a landscape like this, this is a wonderful set. I'm really enjoying the softness of the colors, and the range of values is good, except for that really dark that you might need to find. So I'm adding some green to the trees on this side. They're coming closer to me, so I want them to be a little bit darker. And I am about to, I love how those background trees fade into the distance. So I'm tinting that light area. I want to keep that in there. Now look how your eye goes right for that. The tree coming down is dark. These flowers were exactly that yellow. They were super bright. I'm going to put in more yellow than I really in the end want to show. And then I will layer over that with some greens and some mistier colors. Yep, see, just to make it more realistic. And I love how these layered. I was able to really just touch and pull, and you could see through to the colors beneath. So again, the lighter colors were in the distance. All right, and then there were some sticks and just some duller colored plants that I'm putting in with this mid-dark purple. Keep in mind that purple is a friend of green. They like to be together. They are not complements, they're just friends. And so anytime I'm painting a lot of greens, I do try to put in some purples. But it doesn't hurt that purple is one of my favorite colors, and it's also one of my favorite colors to use. All right, I'm using this muted yellow ochre to kind of temper the color of the yellow flowers, and then to bring it forward and more into the shade where the shade was falling there. So that was a perfect color for that. And now I've got a little bit brighter green for the distant green plants. We're going to be putting in a tree there on the left and another one on the right, so I'm keeping that in mind, adding in some slightly brighter greens. But just look how luscious that green is. It's not your Kelly green that looks like the green crayon in the crayon box. It's muted and just beautiful, but your eye gets the idea that that was very green landscape there. So we're continuing to add a little detail back there to the trees. I'm adding light on the left-hand side. The light was coming from the left-hand side. And so I'm adding some light to indicate the direction that the light was coming from. I wanted to delineate those trees a little bit, but then I made a miss mark, and I want to show you how easy this is to take off. Boop, boop, there it is. I just take my little soft brush and it's gone. If you just touch it barely, you don't have to scrub, then it takes off that very top layer where you made the mistake and leaves the rest. Just a little bit more adjusting. Keep in mind that as you're painting, you are responding to the marks you just made. It's all fixing the mistakes, really. You just make a mark and you go, oops, and then you make another mark to fix that one, and then you go, oops, and you make another mark to fix that one. So don't think that artists know exactly what they're doing all the time. They don't. They put a mark on and then they fix it. They adjust it. They tweak it. That's how art works. If you're thinking about Bob Ross and how he was exactly telling you what to do during the whole thing, do you know he painted each one of those pictures like 3 or 4 times? And only the last one was the one that he painted on screen. So I'm darkening the trees near that light bit because I want that contrast. That's what's going to draw your eye. A few stray marks there. Again, just taking it out a little bit. All right, my hands are really dirty. I really don't know what I'm doing there. I'm thinking something. So I'm about to put in these near trees. Yeah, okay, I was holding up my hands because I couldn't find a dark that was dark enough. So that teeny tiny little splinter of pastel that you see that there is the Terry Ludwig eggplant. And I brought it in so that I could make the tree trunk dark enough and so that you could notice and it would feel like it was closer in. So hopefully you'll be able to find a darker dark within the Girault set if you want to stick with Girault, although there's absolutely no reason to do that. You notice that that Girault looks really dark, but when I put it next to that Terry Ludwig eggplant, you're going to be able to tell that that's not as dark as it looks. So trying to get a tree that doesn't look like a lollipop and has some natural shapes to it. That's always a challenge. Our brains want to help us and to straighten things out and make them sit most beautifully. So that is my goal with this, and I'm learning slowly but surely that less is definitely more, and I don't like how that line is too thick, so I'm just using my handy dandy brush to adjust it. All right, now I'm going to add another bush right here. It's more of a bush, although it's tall, and I'm using a lighter color for the branches because they're really not that dark in the photo, and I don't want your eye split between the two of them. And you'll notice as I go on that I'm adding in enough of the leaf shapes that you barely see the branches at all. So there was shadow coming from these trees because of the light being on the left there. So I'm going to make sure that gets in because I feel like that really picks out the rest of the painting in the light. Remember, contrast and differences. Contrast and differences. Don't make anything look the same. Make sure that you have lots of little things, but also some big shapes in your painting. Squiggly shapes and straight shapes. Round shapes and straight-sided shapes. The more differences you get into your painting, the more interesting it will be. So adding the dark leaves, we don't want too many of those because they're basically shadows. But, and that's another thing that I just learned, that I've been learning, is on trees, as far as leaves go, less is more. Less is more. In your reference photo, it may look like there are a lot more, but if you put that many, then it's not going to have the feel that the scene had whenever you looked at it. So be careful about that. All right, adding the lighter color on top, slowly, slowly, slowly turning the lights on in this tree and also in the other one. Notice that I'm making my marks much smaller in the bigger tree because it's further away. It's further away than the little bush, so the leaves are smaller. Adding some more lights to the top. And hopefully you'll be able to see that whenever I move my hand. There we go. I loved the range of greens in this set, by the way. They were really natural greens. I think I've mentioned that before, but they were quite easy to choose from because they weren't all the same shade. Some were cooler. Look at that acid sort of green. And if you have ever lived out, oh, you'll see me talk about that at the end. The outside of that pastel was one color and the inside was another. Fortunately, the result of using it was quite pleasing. It was kind of a mix of the two colors. And what I was about to say about that acid green is if you live out here in Central Texas, that acid green is everywhere, especially in the spring. It's everywhere. And it's hard to find it in other sets of pastels. It's just an odd color and you don't use very much of it, but if you don't have it, it really shows up on your paintings if you're trying to paint scenes from this area, which is something to consider whenever you are choosing your painting subjects. Just like when you're writing, and we've probably all heard that old adage that says you need to write about what you know. Try painting what you know. Try painting your area, especially if you're more of a landscape artist. paint what you see around you. You know it best. It is in your eyes, it is in your heart, it is in your brain. And when you paint it, you're going to have, hopefully, I would think you would have more of a richer idea of how that actually works. And you'll be able to have a richer painting because of it. When you're painting from photos of somewhere far away, you're going to miss a lot of the nuances. That doesn't mean that your painting won't be worth anything, but you're just going to miss a lot of the nuances. I'm adding some texture back in the back. This was a rough piece of ground. It wasn't like somebody's lawn or anything, so I wanted to give that effect. So paint what you know. Also, something else that I always say is paint what you see, not what you know. That's an important thing. If something's round, okay, fine, but are you actually seeing the full thing? Is it really round in what you're actually seeing? So if it's not round, don't draw a circle. What I was doing there on the side is just cleaning off the pastel. I had used it to go over some of those limbs in the darker tree, and I didn't want it to put any dark down as I added it into the grass there. I put those little green touches in there, and they were just too bright. I didn't want them to take away from your eye going back into the distance, and I felt like they might do that, so I just dulled them down. And we're getting pretty close to the end here. Just adding a few little details, a little texture, a little light on the edges of where the trees were sitting like little hillocks to give you an idea of the space. We're all just tweaking little things at this point. I want to lighten the tips of those deeper grassy areas, so I'm looking for a purpley gray that will work, and I ended up with something that I was pretty happy with, keeping in mind that I am focusing just on using the Girault set of Neutrals and Friends by Richard Mc Kinley. So yep, I liked that, adding just the tiniest amount of detail to give you the idea that those are like dead grasses or something. The spring hasn't really come through those areas quite yet. All right, carving some differences into the trees that are in the distance. Going to give these trees a little bit of character back there. I wanted to make sure that I added a little bit more of the moodiness to the sky. So I was picking a pastel for that. And then I think I decided that I was going to leave the sky the same color, but I was going to brighten parts of it up so that the darker parts look darker. That's called Simultaneous Contrast, and it's a tool you should definitely have in your toolbox of painting devices and strategies. So I've lightened the area down closer to the trees, and now you get the idea that the upper part is moodier. And that's what I was after. I'm just correcting some misstrokes. It's easy to do that with pastel, even if you break the pastels. So again, here we are at oops fix, oops fix. That is what it's like to be an artist. All right, just adding some more. And okay. It's just touching up right now. Adding sky holes in the trees, adding shaping, adding texture, adding light, adding a little bit of detail at the flowers get a little bit bigger as they come toward us. They're not just a swath of color. So breaking them up a little bit in the near ground, the foreground. And I end up doing too much of it and I brush out some of it. When we get to making dots, that we like making dots, and we can end up making too many dots. So I really liked how the light was, brought forward just a little bit, glancing over the tops of the flowers. There in the front. It definitely grabs your eye and then takes you towards the back of the painting. So this is the stage where you have to be really, really careful, or you will overwork your painting. And I am the world's worst. But I do try to stop. I'm going to try to pull in some light on the trunk of the tree. That's what I'm doing right here. They're on the left side. Again, I want to give you that idea where the light's coming from. And unfortunately, that color was not what I wanted, and it lightened it up too much. And so I'm going back in with my trusty eggplant and fixing that, because the contrast there is really important. And so I fixed it, and I'll find a different color and end up adding light there. All right then, I hope you have enjoyed very much watching me create this, and I'll have a few things to say afterwards, so stay tuned for that. Thank you for watching me paint and allowing me to share with you my process. All right, so to finish with some final comments about the Girouts and how I felt about using them. Overall, I had a really great experience. I really appreciate the texture, the vibrance, and so I am recommending them. They go on just very typical to regular soft pastels, even though they feel a little bit harder in their round configuration. They go on like soft pastels very similarly. I will say that for this particular set, the Richard Mc Kinley Neutrals and Friends, there isn't a good dark in there. There's a black, but not any really good colored darks.
So if you get that set as like that's the only pastels you have, make sure that you order also a couple of singles that are some of the darker colors. All right. I did want to point out on this particular color, I think I showed it in the video, but the outside looks like this color. Sorry for the shadow. And then if you look on the inside, it looks like this color. So I don't know what that's about. I didn't have any trouble getting a consistent color. Let me just, it does come out more towards the inside color than the outside color. I just thought that was interesting that it would have that odd coloring. All right, I'll definitely be buying more Girouds, and I'll especially probably switch out some of the other pastels that I have in my little teeny tiny Heilman sketch box that I carry with me. I'll be able to get more colors in, and I feel like they'll be sufficient, and I won't need anything really softer for the kind of work that I do on that little box. I just take it with me sometimes to get some art in when I'm out and about. So I think it will be perfect for that. And for plein air, I think these are going to be awesome. So already considering buying the, I think it's a Richard McKinley Richard McKinley landscape set to go with these, and then maybe even just stock my entire plein air set with mostly those and a few others. So I hope you enjoyed this review. I hope it was helpful for you. Please be sure to ask me any questions that you still have in the comments, and I'm happy to answer that. My next review is going to be on the new Luxe archival paper, so be sure to like and subscribe. You can find me anywhere on social media by looking up EstherLJones.com.